Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show we talk about TV shows that are of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Magicians. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so we wanted to break it down. I do love that, obviously, like that beginning where Margot's like, yeah, this is how I got the axes. Another person's walked in, she tells the story. Another person walks in, she tells the story, and it's like, okay, I'm sick of this, someone else tell the story. And then when the time came for it, the whole situation with the binder, I love that. It's like, oh, it needs Margot's blood. It's like, the little cocksucker bit me. And it's like, oh, it wants blood. All right, I got something for it. And she came back, and Penny's like, is that? She's like, yep, it's Shark Week. You can thank my uterus. I'm like, whoa, dude. Because I even love it when Julia's trying to pass the book to Penny. He's like, oh, and she's like, grow up is what Margot says. I love it. And they released the binder, which I hate that terrible actor's name. The binder ends up being the actor who played, obviously he was Dr. Leakey on Orphan Black, but, you know, kind of using the Syfy show, for example, he played Home Dude in Eureka. It has been such a long time since I've seen Eureka, I don't remember his character's name up there. It's going to bother the crap out of me. I'm blanking on it right now, but that was pretty dope. I was like, It turns out he's a little messed up because he got some missing pages, and who's behind it? It didn't even click on my head until, like, Margot was like, I can see you as some perverted ghost because of her fairy eye, and I'm like, wait, what? I was like, Hyman! Is it Hyman? And yeah, it's Hyman. We have not seen him since last season. I was like, what? I also love that because it's like, once again, he's following the storyline. He's like, oh, Penny 23, and I love when he's referring to Penny 40. He's like, P40. I'm like, dude, I love it. Because for him, he kind of lost track of them because they left Breakbills. Because, like, yeah, they haven't been back to Breakbills since last season. They've kind of, you know, been living their fake lives and everything. Plus, everything that's going down. But for him, it's like, oh, like, he knocked Margot out and did everything because he wants Penny and Julia to get together. Because it's like, you guys, all you do is sacrifice for each other. You never kind of put your own happiness first. Julia literally gave up being a goddess, and you, I mean, let's use the example of Penny 40 literally sacrificing himself, dying for all of this. And it's like, you never put yourselves first. I say why he did all this, because, you know, even though he's the sick, twisted pervert that he is, I even love him being like, I forgot what it was he said that, and Penny was like, that's racist. It's like, but aren't you ending it? And Penny's like, wait, what? And just because, you know, I mean, they don't have to necessarily cut him some slack, but Hyman's from a DIFCOM, so we'll leave it at that. But even though he's twisted and perverted, because this is kind of his little soap opera, I mean, he's stuck in this situation, so it's kind of like, yeah, might as well make the benefit of it, because it's funny how things work out, because Penny taught him how to interact with objects, which allowed him to do what he's doing. So for him, it's like, rather than just like sitting back and watching for things play out, he's actually, you know, playing a role in it. That's what this is all about, because, you know, and that's the cool thing too, because that means Hyman is secretly there the entire time, even though we're not seeing him. Margot will see him, so that probably means going forward we'll probably have Margot being like, what are you looking at? And they're like, who are you talking to? That freaking pervert ghost is back. We'll probably see some sweet stuff like that. That'd be pretty dope. But like I said, even with his pervertedness behind it all, and like the reason why he's doing it, he has good intentions, which when it's all said and done, it does seem like, hey, that's cool, you know. So, but the real meat and potatoes to this whole situation is finding out about the binder. That was some really, really interesting things. Basically, the binder created a way where, like, because when a god dies, their essence, all their magic disappears. But the binder found a way to kind of basically, like, contain it. And then when you contain it, you could actually put it inside of a magician. That's the whole thing, if that magician is well trained enough. And it turns out, like, obviously, anytime you kill a god, that turns into an issue, because even Margot brings it up, but the binder's like, yeah, this doesn't always have something to do with you. It's like, oh, like, what is it? What was she said? Like, oh, the binder is a catty bitch or something like that. I also love that the fact is that the binder speaks in third person. Even Margot's like, what the hell is up with that? The binder's like, I don't know what... The binder doesn't know what she's talking about. So I just thought that was kind of a pretty neat aesthetic, considering, like, oh, the binder's actually a book, just in human form now. Turns out he was actually a librarian first before he got turned into a book. But then the real crazy thing of, like, okay, we find out about the monster and his sister, that they were twin babies born, they were mistakes. Basically, they had immortality, which meant that, like, hey, they could be messed with over and over again. It was a mistake by the old gods, And now, like, the library took that and kind of experimented on it because they say if we do something to them, we don't have to suffer the ramifications of the old gods, essentially, like the main characters did for, everything that went down in season 2's finale. So there's that, situation. So we kind of learn a little bit about where the monster and his sister came from. But then we find out, like, oh yeah, the sister was taken away because she was the strongest one. And the little brother stayed kid-like because it was separated from its sibling, kind of left all alone in this world. Hence why it is the way that it is. That incessant need for wanting is because everything was essentially taken away from it. And we find out what happened to sister. The 4 parts she was split up in, what we saw back then in its memory, was them sacrificing her, not just to kill her. Like, it was because each one of them was a librarian first, and they took a piece of her, like the binder had talked about, and made themselves each a god. I was like, dude, they literally made themselves gods. That's interesting. That's why I'm surprised, like, I guess the old gods didn't care because those 2 were mistakes. So it's like, hey, you can do whatever you want to. You want to parade around being gods and stuff like that? Who cares? Which is so interesting to think about that, because that, like, especially the way Bacchus made it seem like, oh wait, was it someone I knew that you killed? And he's like, oh yeah, like, you killed those gods. I don't really know them, so who cares? Sucks for them. But it's like, you're not even a god yourself. You're a librarian who got the powers of a god. So it's kind of like, in all honesty, you could say, like, everything that went down was just dessert, because it's like, yeah, you were pieces of crap, because the fact is that you killed an innocent girl just so you can all rise up to the power of God. So it's like retribution. Karma's come back to bite them in their asses. And so it's kind of a shame. And it's like, the binder's like, basically when it's all said and done, because the binder was the only one who could turn them back to being human, kind of doesn't matter now because they're all dead now. But now Julia has 2 paths in front of her. She can either become a goddess again, or she can become a human. Each one's going to be painful in their own right. So there's that. And she basically has to come up with a decision. So it comes down to, if she becomes a goddess again, obviously there's benefits to it, but she loses her humanity. But by being human, there's benefits and cons to that. But at the very least, she gets to feel again, And obviously things start happening between her and Penny, but that's quickly interrupted by, lo and behold, the monster's there. It's like, yeah, and as I figured, that woman he took last time, oh yeah, she was meant to be the host for his sister's body, but she can't, her body isn't strong enough. But whose body is? Of course, it's going to be Julia. So that's going to be a complicated thing. So it's going to be interesting to see what route Julia decides to go down. Will she go down the goddess route? Will she go down the human route? I'm more leaning towards the human route, because she already, like, because for her, because she thinks, like, as a goddess, she could do good, because it's like, yeah, she already knows where the other gods kind of messed up, so she could set things right. But with everything that's happening with Penny and just wanting to care, I don't know, you could also make the argument everything that she's been through might actually push her towards the god route, so she doesn't have to feel. But it's like, I think she's in a position where she does want to feel, especially because she's dealt with all, like, everything that's happened to her in the past. Like, she's dealt with it and she's come back stronger from it. So I don't know. And I guess in the long run, this is why they were warning Julia not to stay in the state that she's in, this kind of immortality state, because it would put her in a position to be the perfect host for the creature's sister's body, which is interesting. Which begs the question, why is it that the monster can stay inside of Elliot with no issues? I wonder why is that okay. Or to be fair, I guess because it's not, because, I mean, they did say, like, it is, the sister is more powerful, so maybe that's what it is, because the power is just so much. It's powerful in its own right, but I guess that means its sister is ridiculously powerful. So that's going to turn into an end, because at that point it's going to be a situation of, now not only we have to save Elliot, we also have to save Julia. But it's also about, like, oh yeah, because they wanted to use the axis to depossess them, but it's like, we're dealing with gods here, and the normal means of bottling them up, like everything last episode, is like, that's not enough, we got to do more. So hits the spell, they have to learn from Mayakovsky, and it's like, oh, where's Mayakovsky? Oh, we tracked him down, because yeah, he's not a bear anymore. And then it's Alice and Quentin, that awkwardness. And it's like, oh, Mayakovsky transported his brain into the future, I guess, to kind of get away from everything that's going down here. And him in the future has dementia, which comes back in an ironic sense. Like, basically, long story short, when he brings that moment up later on where he's talking to Quentin, that whole situation, I'll break that down in a second. It's actually kind of ironic, because it's like, oh, everything you want to say, it's fine. It's locked up in a safe. It's a vault. I'll forget it, just like, I forget everything that students like you say. And it's like, that's super ironic you would say that, considering the fact is, not only that, oh, your mind is like a vault, but also the the fact is you're just going to end up forgetting. It's like multiple levels. That's ironic considering the fact is you have dementia in the future. So kind of sucks in that regard. But the real awkwardness is it of, hey, Quentin's transferring his brain to probably the worst moment in time, and that's the moment in time when him and Alice were super in love and super together. Like, obviously, during Mayakovsky, it's like, man, that's kind of the worst time because it's literally the polar opposite of where they are right now. It's like they're not in a good place here, but that's at the point in the relationship before everything happened, before he had his threesome with Margot and Elliot, before her becoming a Niffin and coming back, and that whole complicated thing, her basically working with the library and stuff like that. Before all of that happened, back when they were simply in love and everything, and she's there, and like Quentin feels awkward about it. He's like, no, I'm gonna go get condoms, but she sees that her condom's there, and then Alice is in that awkward situation where like Quentin from the past is there, and Quentin, present day Quentin's body, she has to make a lie up being like, oh yeah, Mayakovsky wants us to do knots, yeah, because yeah, that's totally a real thing, and he kisses her on the head, you know, because like obviously Quentin feels the way that he does, but I think for Alice it kind of felt good because this is Quentin looking at her the way he used to, and it probably makes her feel like the good old times, like, you know, because especially because she's in the situations where she's trying to make up towards Quentin, and then, you know, Quentin's in that awkward situation where it's like this is the moment where him and Alice were in love, but for him it's like feeling the way he does about Alice, and then seeing her look at him the way she does at that point in time. Complicated situation. We also found out about what Quentin's discipline is. I'd completely forgotten. We never found that out in season 1 because it was like, yeah, because everything going on with him, it's like, yeah, undetermined, but it seems he can fix small objects, which in retrospect makes sense. Was that was season 2, wasn't it? When he, I believe so, or was that season 1? No, I think it was season 1 when he ended up fixing that airplane in front of his dad. It kind of makes perfect sense. I bet you if you go back and rewatch a lot of stuff over the course of the series, you would have seen him piecing together small things. I just don't. That plane is the only thing I can think of right now, but I'm sure it has come up before over the course of the season, hinting towards what his discipline is. And I love him being like, man, I thought it'd be something, you know, cooler. But, you know, Alice is like, no matter what the circumstances is, now you don't have to fantasize about it. You know who you are, and, you know, that's a good thing. It might not have been what you wanted, but you know who you are, and that's something to kind of be proud of. But Alice of the past overhears the whole conversation with Mayakovsky, and I love him being like, oh, tell my future self, good job, because I'm the one that created the spell and everything. You know, even in his drunk state, Mayakovsky, you know, you kind of feel bad about everything, especially because his wife wasn't too happy. What's her name again? Is it Emma? I don't remember. The student he was having the affair with, they got married and everything. She got pissed and turned him into a bear and everything. So she wasn't too happy about it. I'm surprised we didn't see her at all this episode, but I guess they didn't need to, considering the fact is they just had to go track down Mayakovsky. So there's that. But, yeah, I mean, it was kind of a sad situation where Alice was like, she knew something was up immediately because she's like, what happened to us? The way you looked at me, like when you first saw me, it was like, she's like, you were filled with so much pain, and, you know, he's like, a lot of stuff happened. You got hurt. I got hurt. And for Alice, it was basically like, you know, it's like, you want to make it so that we never got together or something like that. But for her, it's like, no. Like, even if even if I've never said this before to you, basically, you are the best thing that's happened in my life. And no matter what happens, what you go back to, I want you to know that. And it's kind of sweet. You know, I think that puts things in perspective for Quentin to a certain extent, because it's like, no matter what, the fact is, you know, that's probably something she's never shared with him, that the fact is, like, how important he was to her. And it's like, no matter where we are right now, you know, she is trying to make up for things in the present day. So I think that in itself, that combination of things kind of, you know, because I think this is kind of hinting towards there being a future for them, especially because Quentin, you know, when he snapped back, like, because I love him, like, past him being like, hey, you know what we should do? We should stop tying these knots in his mouths, have sex. And you see Alice being like, wait, you know, this awkward situation. And then they kiss and everything. It's just like, that's good. And when she goes in for another kiss, it's like, oh, it's me, Quentin, from this time. And it's like, oh, well, that's awkward. But I think, like I said, I get the feeling they are finding their way back to each other, little bit by little bit. So that's pretty neat. I'm curious now that I'm thinking about it, like with Quentin's whole aspect of like, oh, you can put small objects together. Well, that technically, well, because her body was made of a small parts, I don't think that would count technically. I was thinking about it. But obviously each piece of her that was broken up like that obviously came out in small parts. Like those were condensed parts. So I wonder would the same thing apply with Quentin's magic being able to put that together. I mean, would there even be, well, it might be a need to, because it's like, because her body is so spread apart, maybe maybe the creature is going to force Quentin to do it potentially when everything comes out about what his discipline is. We'll see. Other than that, we had everything going down in the library. Katie and Zelda going inside the poison room, which was interesting. Having to eat those bugs that basically eat the poison in you. And lo and behold, we finally find out what Everett does. It's like, dude, all the pieces are coming together. Everett is trying to turn himself into God, which makes perfect sense considering other librarians did that. They made themselves into God. So, of course, that's what this is about. He hasn't found a God to kill because he can't really go around killing a God just because it'd create too much of an issue. And I doubt anyone's strong enough to really go up against that creature right now. So it's like, this is his other way of handling it. As long as he can gather enough energy on the same level as a god, I think that's enough for him. And his book says that he actually succeeds, so that's going to be a complicated thing all on its own. How that necessarily plays out for everyone else, we'll ultimately have to see. But sadly, Zelda and Katie end up getting locked inside there, and Katie's getting close to dying, which would super suck. Also fit with the whole thing of like, oh yeah, Penny saw someone, he's like, oh, hey. So I felt like it was Katie. It'd be kind of not... It'd suck if that ended up being the case. Not unless it ends up being Zelda. I feel like that would suck too, especially because of her and Harriet being reunited. Like I said, it could end up being someone else. But I think it would be... I felt like just with the way he said it, kind of made it seem like it might have been someone he cared about the most, Katie. But to be fair, it could have been anyone in the group who he hasn't seen in a while. But my money's always been on Katie. But this could lead into that situation where it'd be super sucky if she ends up dying from the poison room, literally like he did, So there's that whole can of worms. And once again, whatever it will end up doing, I guess for him, it's like, oh, I'll rise up to being a god, and my morals as a librarian, I'll carry those over into ruling as a god, and I'll set humanity on the right path type of thing. We'll see. I can't also forget the fact is that the binder was like, oh yeah, when it's all said and done, make sure you burn me because I don't want to be used to do something terrible like that again. Because that was his biggest regret, is what they did. Because he saw what became of it. So, and then finally, there's everything in Fillory. Because apparently there's the 13th king or whatever. He's draining up all the water. And that Naiad, I love Tick torturing her, and when he just kind of forgot at one point, starts drinking the water, she's like, oh, the pain, he's almost like, oh crap, I completely forgot. There's also that bear game that they, or rhyme that they came up with. It's a game that also they learn as kids. That's essentially hopscotch, and they're trying to get Josh to play it because obviously it's about figuring out the way to get to these reservoirs that was underneath the castle, because it's not just water, it's reservoirs of a whole bunch of magic, which I'm curious to see what that ends up turning out to be, because it's all that magic underneath there is what's... Well, because the water's pulling away, but I think it's also because of all this magic and stuff that's being gathered. Maybe, I'm assuming maybe this has something to do with Everett. Maybe he's the 13th king in all of this, so maybe he's playing the role of a librarian, but maybe he's a long-lost king in this whole situation. So he's gathering magic not just in the library. Well, no, because the library, because at first I was like, maybe the library and under Fillory, but it's no, under Fillory is where he's gathering all the magic he needs to make himself into a god. So that's what's screwing Fillory up with all the mishaps that's been happening. I even love the fact is it's the winds of fate came soon, and then Josh is on his own little show of there's no TV shows in Fillory. What the hell? Run with it. So we got to know where Josh's future goes. But who knows if those are 100%. They might be this is a possibility that you might go down. Might not be 100% guaranteed. I hope for Josh's sake it is. Just to, he deserves some good. The happen in him. The happen in him? I don't know why I phrased that like that. Whatever the case may be. But I love that Finn and Tick were kind of upset because they're oh, God, you don't know how to play. It makes sense because in Fillory, it's it's a child's game. It's you don't understand it, Because I even love him being what the hell does this have to... Why? It's hopscotch with a bear? It made no sense to him. Even when he's playing it, it's yeah, this still doesn't make any sense. It's duck, there's a bear. It's you avoided the bear. It's I was oh, I'm supposed to say this certain thing, so... Dude, it is getting... crazy. We are nearing the end of the season. This is episode 11. There's only 2 more episodes left. Things are going to go crazy. And I'm so interested to see, obviously what next week's episodes got in store for us. I'm curious to see how this all continues to play out. So I'm very excited to see what happens. But really, that's all I want to talk about today. Next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.